Okay, thank you for listening to this episode of Bloodhound Pix, where we are returning to our more traditional double feature episode with highlighting highlighting two independent or obscure movies. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, by the time this comes out, that we are joining the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network, and we're really excited. And for that purpose, we are doing a little bit different approach to make things more concise for you, and producing one of these double features once a month, and then having a series of other stuff that'll come out throughout the month. So this episode, it was Kyle's pick, and we are doing Don't Torture a Duckling, and then The Beyond. And I will have Kyle. I guess as always, I am one of your co-hosts, Craig.
I'm Kyle.
And Josh.
There we go. And yeah, I'll have Kyle take the reins now.
Yes. So we're doing a double feature of Fulci. I think his two probably best films, to be honest.
Not Zombie 2?
To me, no. No offense. I mean, the fucking eye scene the eye bit is great, and like the ending is kind of awesome, but there's some, the zombie fights a shark. I don't know. That says it all. Those are the best parts.
Yeah.
These are the ones I think are the best out of the ones I've binged. So we'll go in chronological order, and we'll talk about Don't Torture a Duckling first, which is kind of so it's a giallo, but it's almost a giallo meets like a folk horror thing. Essentially, there's these kids being killed in a remote Italian village, and they're trying to figure out who the killer is. And there's a lot of commentary regarding kind of rural Italian life versus modern Italian life, and the kind of superstitious beliefs that they have, and also religion and stuff. But I'll throw it to you guys to see what you thought.
So I liked it. I will say for those listening that even though some of the other ones may be more violent, so this was the first movie of his that he really went for the gore and went that route. That it gets credited for, that kind of, I guess, realistic gore approach.
That's not really true, actually. He did before this. He did A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, and there's like there's a hallucinatory scene where you see like these dogs that have been like cut up really bad, and he actually had to go to court to prove that it was in effect.
Okay, I don't know. Then I guess When I was reading up on it, that's what they
lied to you. I mean, it's more realistic than Lizard in a Woman's Skin.
Yeah,
I would say, but
so it does deal with a lot of child death. So as a trigger warning for that's what it's all about, is prepubescent boys getting killed because obviously it's a sensitive subject for some people. No, but I enjoyed it. I think it was more, out of the two, it's obviously more coherent. In terms of plot, it kind of has these. It's interesting to compare versus somebody like Argento or Bava. It's because of its rural setting. It's very, it has the rural setting, so it doesn't really have that same the appearance that you would find in the beautiful architecture or the whatever. It's not as stylized, as was already mentioned, as you would find in an Argento film. And I thought that was pretty neat about it. It was, since this was my first time, the twists and turns, I kind of had a suspicion, if we're giving spoilers, who it was.
I think we can spoil it.
Yeah, it's old enough.
It's been almost 50 years.
So the priest is the one doing it, but it's nothing sexual to the boys. He's doing it because he believes that he's freeing them in a way before they commit sin themselves, so that they'll be these pure spirits. and go to heaven and all that. There are some things that I know it got hit on a little bit, because especially looking at today's society, because you have this older woman that's basically enticing these children in a very sexual way, and you think she's kind of the killer throughout it, but then somehow she becomes the hero, even though but Fulci, I know, in like my reading and listening, he out of all of the Italian directors is known for the most misogyny of those directors, which I mean you could see in all this stuff. In Zombie 2, he has there's that shark fight, but it also has a woman fighting the shark as well, and she's just there to be in a thong or whatever she was. It's been a while since I watched it, but no, I liked there was the kind of approach. I liked the twists and turns. Overall, I thought it was decent. I liked the use of the rural area, and it was better than I was expecting, I guess.
Josh?
Shockingly, I had never seen this. I don't know how that was even possible, but I'm a huge fan of Fulci, so that was surprising that I'd never seen it. And when I started watching it, I was using Amazon Prime, and it's in Italian. So I was smart and put the Shudder version on, which is overdubbed.
I was gonna say the subtitled version's better.
I would assume that it is, but I don't want to read. So I was largely bored with this movie, and I think the reason why, after I thought about it more, is because even juxtaposed with The Beyond, which is probably Fulci's best film, I've seen it, I bet you, at least 100 times. In fact, I watched it last week again. It doesn't do it for me at all in terms of like again, just juxtaposed with The Beyond. That film is just so batshit, and I don't know. It just it seemed like in Don't Torture a Duckling, which does have the most fucking Giallo name ever. It seemed like he was being a lot more careful in the script, which again has child murder and a woman trying to have sex with 12-year-olds. But it seemed like he was being careful, and I think what I mean specifically in being careful is, I don't know, making it make sense, having like some coherency to what you're watching, things like that. And it was pretty obvious as it was going on that it was something that was earlier in his career, which is not a bad thing at all, but he kind of evolved into the style of The Beyond over time. And in the early 70s, this was 1972, I think, he abandoned the Giallo shit, you know what I mean, and just went off the fucking rails with story, not always making sense, but that's not that important.
Well, he's one of the directors too that he also did spaghetti westerns. He has kind of more of, I think, a wide range of genres that he's covered than some of the other known Giallo directors.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys did. I mean, Italy was just ripping off anything that was popular. I think Argento's really the one that stuck totally to it. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up though, Josh, because that's kind of why I picked these two. I think they're his best two, but I do like there's a huge evolution from this film to The Beyond, you know, where he's making a giallo, and then as it goes on, he gives less of a fuck about strict logic or coherence, and it, you know, to the point that you get to The Beyond, it's much more of like dream logic, and it's just more mood and music and lighting and the feeling of stuff, and things can just come out of left field.
Yeah, like, I mean, even you know, like I said, I'm a huge fan of his. So even something like House by the Cemetery, you know, what's the God, I can't even think of the name. I think it's because it has like 4 names, but the zombie one that's not zombie,
City of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
there you go. I mean, you know, those films, like the scripts are just so like nonsensical, but does it matter? No, it doesn't really matter. And I think in this, in Don't Torture a Duckling, he clearly wasn't at that point. Like you know, there's coherency in what you're watching. So
yeah,
you know.
I mean, I was gonna say I think this is his most coherent film.
I would agree. I mean, I was almost astounded that it was him, because I'm like, where's the fucking eyeball trauma? Why does this make sense?
That's why I like it, though. I mean, this is
and then that fucking ending just solidified for me that it was Lucio Fulci with the goddamn dummy falling off the cliff and seeing the fucking face get skinned by hitting the side of the cliff, what, 8 times? Oh my God. That was the funniest motherfucking thing.
It even creates sparks, which I don't think would happen.
Well,
and I mean,
that,
and it's so obviously fake, but again, does it matter? No.
That's the moment to me where he's like, he's telling you what direction he's gonna evolve into, basically.
It is. It's like, you know, I noticed that he had a couple writing partners on the script for this movie. Yeah. And you know, it was almost like he got to the last scene and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking change this ending. I'm not gonna tell those motherfuckers. We're going fucking completely off the rails with this shit.
Pretty much, yeah. I do. All that being said, I still think it's got a lot of subtext for a giallo, with all the stuff just regarding the kind of ignorance and superstition of the villagers and how they
Roman Catholicism too.
Yeah, and how there's the woman who's supposed to be the witch, Florinda Balkan, who I think is great. And you see, like, she has seizures and stuff, so they thought she was possessed, and they kind of shunned her. And then she gets questioned by the police, and then she gets murdered. And I think is like the best scene of the movie. No dialogue. She's just those guys come to beat her to death. And then you see her dying on the side of the like modern highway as people are going to vacation and stuff.
Yeah. And like everybody that sees her is like, fuck that, I'm not stopping for that bitch.
Yeah.
So it was interesting read, because I know, Kyle, you're a big giallo fan, and just went through on our you can look back on our old stuff. You went through a whole Argento phase and of watching all of his content, but I was listening on something about this movie, and they were really talking about how, so in Italian cinema there's 3 tiers, and so, you know, it's the Fellini, it's top tier, and you have tier 2, and then the bottom one is the Grindhouse, or films like this that you'd put in there, and these would all go to, you know, like southern Italy. They would go toward, you know, these kind of rural, poor communities, but it wasn't like they wouldn't go to the movies to go watch the movie. It was that they would go to socialize. So with these movies, you had to keep throwing in like all this violence or something to get them to actually watch the film, because, you know, they're not there. It's in the same vein as people watch or reading their phone nowadays. You know, if you were going there to text or socialize. Yeah, so I think it does the job in that way, of that it just, like, every way it turns, it, you know, gives you something to look up. I don't think I ever felt the need to go on my phone or
Yeah,
do that while I watch it. Yeah.
it's very engaging, and it's always kind of like pivoting. Unlike Beast Within, there
Yes.
are
Which we
effective,
talk about.
which we talked about in another episode. There are effective red herrings and stuff happening, and twists and turns and stuff. Yeah,
You can see a lot of influence from this on other movies, I think, in terms of like some of the red herrings. They, that character type almost pops up in a lot of other kind of murder mystery type movies.
yeah. Yeah. What else? I mean, I think the only other thing I have to talk about is the cinematography, especially in the interrogation scenes, is like a masterclass of highlighting what is important, and also just kind of like doing these Dutch angles in one shot. Like there's a couple shots where it's like talking to Craig and it's like this, and then it goes straight and goes like this. But it's all very Giallo like, but it's I feel like in this it's more seamless than most Giallo films. Like you're not like, it's not, even though it's very like it's very showy camera work, it works. It's not like taking you out of the film and you're just going like, oh wow, that's a weird fucking zoom. Like it all flows, to me at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
great.
That's Don't Torture a Duckling. I guess we can move on to The Beyond.
Beyond.
1981.
Not From Beyond.
Not From Beyond. Although
which maybe we should do, but
we should do From Beyond.
Yeah.
They're kind of no, they're not really. I mean, they're both supernatural.
Yeah.
So this is basically a woman inherits a hotel in New Orleans that a famous artist, or I don't know how famous he was, but an artist was murdered there, kind of like lynched by these townspeople for whatever reason. And the hotel is haunted / infested with zombies. I don't know.
Yeah. So
I mean, zombies come up.
Yeah, I read up that it was he didn't want to do zombies.
Correct.
They told him, "We'll give you creative control if you add in zombies," or something like that. Was the story at least? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell at the end when we go to the morgue. They go back to the morgue for kind of no reason, because you're already at the house, and then you go there, have an action scene, and then end up back in the basement. But so basically, it's her trying to figure out how this place is. I don't know that she's really trying to do anything. I mean, this place is haunted.
It's one of the 7 gates of hell or something.
Yeah, it's also known as 7 doors to death. And it's interesting to note that when this fucking thing was released, so the long version is 87 minutes, which, chef's kiss. Yes, thank you. But when this was released originally in America, like a couple years after in Italy, they cut off that prologue. Okay. So then it wouldn't really fucking make sense, because like the prologue sets up that the guy was in that room that the buzzer keeps going off in and stuff. And it's not like it's super, like it just kind of lays the groundwork. It's not, I don't know why they need to cut that 7 minutes out, but it seems weird.
And how amazing is that prologues thing too? Like just the way it looks, the way it's shot, the costume. I mean, it's like fucking flawlessly done.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's beautiful, and it's sepia tone, and it like the effects look even better because it's colorless kind of, and it just makes them look. Yeah, I mean, it's fucking great. And sets up the Book of Aban, which Craig, I feel like, should know Clark Ashton Smith, but that's his creation. So he's like a Lovecraft contemporary, another author who wrote kind of same kind of stuff. But he created the Book of Aban, and they lifted that apparently.
And then,
fun fact.
Yeah, this was so I know I've seen it before, but again, I think because of the dream stuff and all the dream logic and everything, I can never. This is probably my second time watching it, but I've seen, like, I'll watch the scenes throughout, I guess, spaced out. But I enjoyed it. as much as I guess person can in that route. Um,
How much
as we're
can a
talking-
person enjoy it, Josh?
Yeah, no, but I just mean in terms of like for based on narrative or stuff. I think it worked really well. I know this is part of the trilogy, which had the City of the Living Dead, and then
House by the Cemetery.
yes, which all deal with one of the doors to hell or one of the gate or
Basically,
doors of death. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you have a ton of. It's basically in a way, Fulci doing all of the scenes that he wanted to get away with the eye stuff, or what. There's the spiders and a series of horrific scenes, and it works really well for that. It's a real experience, I think, instead of just going in for a narrative. That's what I'd suggest to people that haven't seen it yet, is that to go on for that aspect instead of looking for a plot or things like that.
Josh?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I think this is probably close to the 100th time I saw it. I think it's one of the better films maybe ever. So, I mean, needless to say, I have nothing but good things to say about it. I was really glad that I watched Don't Torture a Duckling first, because if I would have done it the opposite way, I don't know if I would have made it through it, just because of the difference in the style that we mentioned. I mean, obviously the Beyond plays, fucking fast and loose, and Don't Torture a Duckling is anything but. So yeah, as I said, I've got nothing but praise for the Beyond. It's to kind of put it in perspective in terms of the difference between the two. What do we get? So we get that prologue that we were talking about, which lasts around 7 minutes or so. And then I think it takes maybe another 7 minutes before we get a horrific eyeball trauma. So, I mean, he's just hits the fucking ground running with the Beyond. It's very fast. It's very loose. The story doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really matter. There's a wicked death scene about every 10 minutes. There's gratuitous tarantulas eating people.
And actually showing like the pincers eat it.
Yes.
It's not. It's made to be like a realistic eating. I guess as realistic as you can get.
And it's just fucking glorious. The zombie bit does come out of fucking nowhere and makes absolutely no sense. But I think at that point, it doesn't bother me. I think what bothers me is, number one, I know why it's in there. And I think it actually does make some sense that it happens that way, because, I mean, let's think about it. He's kind of already shown you that people become possessed, right? I mean, that's sort of part of the evil, I guess. So I guess, by having reanimated corpses, zombies, basically, I guess, the seventh circle of hell, or whatever you want to call it, can do whatever the fuck it wants. So if it wants zombies, it's going to have zombies.
Yes. Yeah, I rewatching it didn't bother me either. I don't know that it really bothered me before, but I actually like it. I feel like it works, and it's to me, it's the best fucking exploding head ever when that redhead little girl gets shot. Perhaps I think like maybe the most realistic looking.
Without question. Speaking of that scene, and what does not work at all is how many times that guy fires that gun that's obviously a 6-shooter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he's like firing from like 2 feet. I don't know. It's very Seems
so
like
hilarious.
It seems like it was probably dangerous to shoot. He's firing that blank gun like really close to those extras.
Yeah.
It's also like, I also think it's awesome how it cuts to the end, to them going down the stairs into the basement of the house.
Dude, the end is one of the best fucking things ever.
it's amazing. But I think like that cutting and making it seem like everything's dislocated could be like an editing error or whatever, but it works really well and makes you feel like the world is this weird fucking nightmare place now, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that ending of The Beyond is probably one of my favorite endings ever.
I think it's my favorite Fabio Frizzi score too. I think it's my favorite like Fulci music.
Oh god, dude, I listen to that score all the time. Yeah, it's so fucking good. It's very repetitive, but it works so well. And like, you know, it literally is like you could not imagine changing that for anything because of how fucking awesome it is.
Yeah, and it's also like surprisingly beautiful for a horror movie score, especially the stuff with like the almost like chorus, all the vocals and stuff.
Yeah.
There's
so basically
also...
what we're...
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so basically The Beyond is one of the greatest films ever made, in case you couldn't tell.
Yes.
I just want to make that clear.
How do you feel about its place in the trilogy? This is supposed trilogy, because I think it's the best one by far.
Yeah.
It is the best one. I mean, it is the best one, and then I mean, for me personally, House by the Cemetery is a big favorite. So, I mean, for me personally, it goes The Beyond, House by the Cemetery, and then the zombie one that's got like 4 names, City of the Living Dead.
I would go opposite. I think City of the Living Dead's my second favorite, mainly because that one guy's like people's brains get like squeezed out of their head.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It is good.
I also think there's.
No,
what do you say?
I think I just was gonna say I think I like House by the Cemetery so much just because of the fucking death scenes in the film are so outlandish. I mean, that's kind of like a Fulci given, right? Especially like later in his career. But that character, the fucking Nazi doctor guy, is just like out of fucking control.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it. I think I've only seen that one time.
I love it.
But so I was gonna say, did you guys notice the Emily girl with the guide dog, the blind woman, who ends up getting killed by her own guide dog, Suspiria?
That was so fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it was great, but it's also just like a Suspiria nod.
Yeah.
To the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's like a special magic to the whole film too, because there's just something weird about an Italian filmmaker making a movie in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just like a weird vibe to the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, seeing how well that setting works. Obviously, you know, he's doing most of his stuff in Italy and in those kind of areas, whether it be urban or rural, but the setting in New Orleans for The Beyond, I mean, it just works so well. Like, it's just flawless. Again, you couldn't, I mean, I don't know, you couldn't change that. It would just not work as well.
No, yeah, it adds a lot. I mean, it's just a great, weirdly gothic almost atmosphere in a way.
Mm.
And that highway too that just goes over the ocean.
So fucking weird.
Well, New Orleans is one of those cities that I think is the only, I don't know, one that would work with that style. I don't know, that style in a way where I don't think any other American city would have that sort of history and that look to really work with, you know, an Italian filmmaker like that, you know, or that type of story, I guess.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Anything else? Did you guys notice the "Do Not Entry"? Josh, you have to have seen that sign when they outside the morgue room where the bodies are. It says "Do Not Entry."
Oh yeah. And I was gonna say too. You know, we were talking about, or I brought up the fact that in that kind of like zombie massacre sequence. The dude firing the 6-shooter like at least 15, 20 times without reloading. I also thought it was fucking hilarious that you apparently have to dress your own dead in a morgue full of other dead bodies because that's just the way New Orleans works, I guess. You know, whereas as Joe, the plumber's wife or whatever, comes in and she clearly like put those clothes on him while there's all these other dead bodies just lying there. I mean, that's just standard practice for New Orleans.
Yeah.
For any plumber, I guess. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And Craig, did you know the librarian right before the tarantula attack? That's Fulci.
Oh, I didn't.
Fun fact.
Yep, sure is.
There we go.
He does his little Hitchcock cameo.
Yeah. Sam Raimi, any director. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Anything else on the Beyond?
No, not that. So our next episode like this will be Josh's pick. I know. And Josh, do you have your double feature?
I have no idea because I didn't even know it was my turn. So I'll have to give it some thought.
Okay. So we will promote that and keep watching movies. And we are now a part of I think this will actually be our first episode, right? With the Morbidly Beautiful.
I think our first one is going to be the thing we did with New Horror Express.
Okay. So then never mind. So anyway, we are now a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network, though, and I think we have to promote them.
Yeah, I mean, I also added it to our end credits, so it's always just there.
Good. Okay.
So I'm just negating everything that you do, Craig.
Good. No, I'd rather have it that way than this way. Okay.
All right. That's Fulci for you.
Thank you, and keep listening.
Bloodhound Pix podcast is part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Produced by Josh Lee, Craig Drum, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Editing by Kyle Hintz.